Welcome to Cheques and Balances. I'm Michael Vincent. This is James Blair. And today we're joined by the CEO and founder of PocketSmith, Jason Leong. And this is Cheques and Balances.
Awesome. Okay, very excited for today's podcast. Got a very special guest, Jason, joining us from the very warm Dunedin. How are you doing today, Jason? What's it like in Dunedin?
It's blazing. It's like 35 degrees. I'm sweating.
Yeah. When we were organizing this and you sent me an email going, I'm looking forward to the warmer weather in Dunedin, and I'm thinking it's August. What is this guy up to?
It's climate change. It was true. I think it was 19 degrees that day and the sun is shining. In fact, this week it's going to move up to about 15 or 16. Ooh. It's a great time to be in the south.
Yeah. I guess there's a long play. Dunedin, potentially 30 years in the future, might be subtropical, which, will be incredible.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So you're an advocate for climate change, Michael?
One could read it that way.
Maybe I'll start factoring that into where I advise people to buy houses. Yeah, think south, and they'll go Dunedin, and they'll go further south, Antarctica. Like real long play here. You want it to be real, neutral on the climate change.
Yeah, Dunedin's got enough capital growth going in their house price at the moment, so let's not encourage it anymore. So today, as Mike mentioned in the intro, we've got Jason, who's the founder and CEO of PocketSmith. This is quite exciting for me personally. Jason will explain in a second what PocketSmith is all about. But as a financial advisor, where we help people pay down debt, invest money, plan for the future, achieve the lifestyle they've always dreamed of, one of the key pieces is knowledge and understanding your current situation. And with that knowledge, knowing what steps to take forward. So PocketSmith is a really important tool in my arsenal to make sure clients are taking control of their future. So Jason, very excited to have you here today. We're going to run this in a bit of a two-part series, so make sure to check it out. This episode is all about going, what is PocketSmith? How does it help Kiwis and people all around the world? 250,000 clients around the world, which is pretty crazy numbers for a little old business in Dunedin. So Jason, can you kick us off maybe by telling us a little bit about what PocketSmith is all about?
Yes, and thanks, James and Mike, for having me on your show. I've loved the work that you guys do, and it's been just great having a banter with you so far.
Cool.
And PocketSmith, well, PocketSmith basically software that helps you answer questions about your money. You can configure it to make the best money management solution to suit you by combining the features you need to use. So it solves small, medium, and large problems. Small, for example, is like me tracking how much I'm spending on groceries at the moment and seeing it get more expensive during lockdown. You guys actually seen that? Like your basket of goods are just that much more expensive, and you don't.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Also see it on the news every night as well.
Yeah. You can't help but feel that the supermarkets are maybe gaslighting you a little bit, and the sales are still kind of there, but it just definitely it's. Statistically, I can see from my PocketSmith that the spend on an average basket of goods is going up. So that's one thing we can solve. Medium is seeing like a 10-year forecast and creating a budget, sticking it to get to my goals. And a large problem that we solve would be like managing a side hustle like an Airbnb. So you can code your deductibles, so you can run a report for your taxes. So that's what we do. We're just a wide-ranging piece of kit, and people just come in to get clarity and control over their money.
Yeah, cool. And where did you sort of get the idea from PocketSmith? What was the initial spark, and what's the evolution to sort of get you where you are now?
Well, we certainly didn't think that we built this behemoth of a product that we've got today. It started with something very simple. I was using a calendar to plan my finances. So I would put my bills and income into a grid calendar just as reminders of sort of when I would be paid. And I thought, hey, I could just put like a running balance for that account for each day as well. So I could see how much I was meant to have. And I thought it'd be cool if we could make a calculator to basically calculate my daily bank balances going into the future. So create a cash projection. So I knew the impact of a present decision on my future finances. So I got together with some buddies, and we made that the first version of PocketSmith. And it took us maybe 4 weeks to make an alpha version of the product. We released it to a ton of people. And from there, our journey really began, and we quickly learned that personal finance isn't a one-size-fits-all problem to solve. So for my own use, I needed to see the future, but the feedback we got from our users was, hey, this is cool, but it'd be really great if, to James's point, we could see the truth in our actual finances. So can we get file imports? Can we connect to banks? Can we make budgets? And that's a big part of how we've built out the product, which is listening to customer feedback, really getting into walking a mile in their shoes and understanding their journeys. And much like you guys, I guess, like trying to understand how to provide a solution that gets the customer to the right point. So that's where we are today. That's where it started from.
I love that you used to use your calendar. That's a great starting point. And for a lot of these things, it's about just getting something going and having a starting point, and then getting feedback and building on it.
Yeah, a spreadsheet would have been the most, I guess, common tool to use, but I just wanted something a bit more visual and something a bit more malleable. But that still drives a lot of our philosophies today with the product, which is, can you cut and design your finances so that you can see it in a way that makes the most sense to you? And that's gonna take you that next step, gives you the encouragement and the knowledge to make the right decisions from there.
Yeah, and I think one of the reasons I really like your offering is that it's not about that it's easy for people. You can't have something that's too complicated. Some people love a spreadsheet, that's fine. But a lot of people go, how much time is this going to take me to get it up and running? And Mike and I both working at banks for quite a long period of time. Now that you've got the integration with, you can log into your banking, pull in all your transactions. How was that process to, I guess, get all the banks on board and start to build it out to make it a better customer experience?
In one word, fraught. It's tough. I think we were really ahead of time. We had bank integrations in 2010, and the US would have been our first market because I think it was still very new for New Zealand to have a tool that did something like this. And what we believed was that we'd be able to plug into a bunch of APIs and actually get the data, and our focus for the business would still be on building out the product that would be, best serve that could best serve our customers. What we found is that because there isn't a standardized way for banks to communicate with third parties, there are exceptions, things break all the time, and just the process of creating that reliable pipe that, metaphorically delivers water to your house, it just requires a lot of maintenance. And there's just so much diversity with the different data connections out there. So it was awesome the first time we got actual automatic transactions syncing into PocketSmith, because the first version of PocketSmith had just file uploads, and we made and still have one of the most flexible file uploaders. You could throw anything at it and it will interpret that data. But what we learned was that it was still a lot of work for most people to go into their online banking system and download the files and then re-upload them. That was a major I guess a tripping point for customers who just wanted to open up their app and see their information up to date. So the battle continues. But it's getting better.
Yeah, and it's some really good stuff in there, right? Like it's you have to make it as easy as possible for the customer, and the littlest things on that journey, right? Like even having to repeatedly put credentials in at different banks or something like that can be can effectively be a roadblocker for getting them through, and the process around solving that in a consumer friendly way from your side is I imagine is really difficult, especially when you combine it with even the incremental differences in the data feeds that you're getting from the banks, like something as simple as a transaction string. What information is in that transaction string? Do you get the auth data? Do you get the what is the order of the data in that transaction string? And that sort of stuff can be a pretty resource heavy sort of endeavor.
Michael is coming out.
You're describing, I think, very accurately some of the work that we've got to do to make sure that the data is meaningful and in the right order. There's a lot in there to unpack. The security aspect of it is a big
Yeah.
one, and I think the consumers have long been crying out for this type of feature, and it's just taking a very long time for the financial industry to catch up, for the banks to catch up and offer something.
Yeah.
Like this. I mean, arguably, there's little financial gain for the banks to make that data open for consumers, and as we've seen with other countries like in the UK and Australia, the government has had to step in to make it feasible and safe for consumers to get the data that they're entitled to. So the fact that our government has announced the CDR for next year, I mean, it'll still probably be 3 or 4 years before we see actual data sharing in practice, but it's a very good step for us.
Yeah. And I'll try not to go too tech heavy on this episode. I'll save it for the next one.
Please do, Michael.
Yeah. Everyone's going, where the hell did that come from? Yeah. So, but I guess when we look at traditionally in the New Zealand, maybe not market, but in the New Zealand behavior, Kiwis have always been pretty poor at saving. When you compare to every other household consumers or households on a global scale, and they tend to rely on short-term debt a lot more. Why do you think that's the case? And I guess is that something that PocketSmith is trying to focus on and try and solve for consumers and that sort of thing?
It's only one of the things we're trying to focus on, but we're quite agnostic when it comes to the problems that our customers are trying to overcome. It would be one of a number of things. And so we've got tooling that help people with that, but that is just, it's one of the things, one of the many things that people are grappling with.
Yeah.
As to why Kiwis are traditionally poor at saving, it's a tough one. It could come down to culture, but I think that the reasons are much more complex than that. Education certainly plays a part, and we've not traditionally had a good foundation for financial literacy in New Zealand. We still don't. And there are really great startups out there doing the work in that place, but we need to do better. And poor financial habits, as a result, they can be passed down from one generation to another, right? It's amazing how our parents' financial habits or their predispositions towards money have a long-lasting impact on how we see money as well. For good and bad. Debt is also relatively easy to obtain here in New Zealand. But I think there's an argument that it's a time of economic disruption, and this growing wealth divide lets us look at the saving situation from a couple of viewpoints. So there are those who believe their retirement is secured because of their equity in the housing market. People are, we're just seeing so much money being thrown around now post-COVID. And then there's the younger generation for whom there's a lot of unknown. So perhaps there's a drive to like YOLO, live for the here and now, because they've been left holding the bag on a number of fronts. Unaffordable housing is one. Climate change, down here in Dunedin, we may be experiencing some of the benefits of that with warmer winters. It's 10 degrees warmer than average, right? At 19 degrees, insane. And also low wage growth. So for those people, it'd be hard not to feel that the social contract given to those past generations has been broken for them. And that, in the past, there'd be some security regardless of how you're saving or spending. You kind of land on your feet, probably because of your nest egg in your house. So it's a complex one. I think it affects people differently. Fundamentally, it goes back to education, and most people, if they had better clarity over their situation, they would make the right choices, I think. And it's just the absence of that understanding. But I don't think it's an issue that's just isolated to New Zealanders. I read a report recently, it showed 40% of Americans don't even have $1,000 set aside for an emergency fund. So it's global. And I think that wealth divide is also, it's happening everywhere.
Yeah. And I think that's you raise a really good point there about, the different, perhaps almost generational viewpoints to finances and saving and spending and these sorts of things, and definitely long-term planning as well. And perhaps there's a number of reasons why maybe younger generations at the moment aren't so maybe that they're not interested in it, but perhaps feel a sense of, I don't know, maybe hopelessness about the situation, and like you alluded to, with that social contract being broken around some of the things that they would expect in the future from the trade-offs that they're making now. And I guess not to put you at the other end of the spectrum to say someone like AfterPay, but you sort of see technology facilitating both ends of this, right? If I look at PocketSmith and what you guys do, and maybe saying, you're about solving these problems and planning for the long term and that sort of thing. And then maybe if I look at AfterPay and say, okay, they're also solving a problem for consumers, which is that shift away from perhaps call it debt that is less advantageous, like credit cards, and have higher interest rates and higher penalties, but are actually moving towards something that's making the retailer pay. So they're not paying these high interest costs and these sorts of things. So on face value, it looks like a really good proposition for everybody, because everybody wins. But you could almost take the view again that actually the underlying behavior that they're driving, is to spend more and save less. So in the long term, they are the product, or they are paying a cost there, and that actually, you almost sit at the other end of the spectrum to AfterPay. So do you see yourself, I guess, not at opposites with them, but sort of operating in the same space, but doing potentially different things for the consumer?
Oh yeah, it's quite a bit to unpack there. It's a really good point, actually, because we when we talk about people reviewing PocketSmith, and we alluded to it before the interview, right? That some of the rave reviews on PocketSmith are like, I've plugged in my accounts and oh my God, I've just got a massive shock. And it's not like, hey, I've just bought this amazing puffer jacket using AfterPay. So we're kind of like, from a marketing and consumer appeal perspective, kind of at odds, and it's hard not to feel like we've got a bit of a chip on our shoulder about that. We're like, we're fighting for good here. But to your point, I think people who demonize AfterPay are the same that will tell you to cut up your credit cards, because like credit cards, it is a tool that can be used very well, or it can be abused. And the system is structured actually very well to help someone budget for a purchase by splitting up those purchases into chunks, right? And there's no interest. And there's definitely, on the flip side, the appeal to being able to buy a lot more than what you believe you can afford. So when AfterPay started blowing up, I was certainly in the camp of like, this is not really good for consumers, because all of the reasons that you've laid out. But then again, I took a step back and I'm like, well, but we're fans of credit cards. We're fans of educating people about the benefits of buying on your credit card if you can pay off your balance on a month-to-month basis. And you end up being, I guess, one of those people that credit card companies don't like. I think what do they call them? I think they call them deadbeats. Is that right? There's the revolvers, the churners, and the deadbeats. And the deadbeats are the people who don't generate a return for the credit card companies. Unfortunately, they're in the minority, right? But there's so much you can get from it, because you get free travel insurance, you get free purchase protection insurance, you get chargebacks if you need, all available to you if you can manage your card well. So likewise with AfterPay, it's even more structured. Arguably, it should work to the benefit of the consumer, but it's a double-edged sword. So, it comes back down to education again, and arguably AfterPay is incentivized also by people who don't make their payments on time, because they do make money from the late fees. As I understand it, the Commerce Commission is going to take a look at these buy now, pay later plans. Is that right?
It's funny. I just got to chuck it in quickly. I've got a funny story about that. My sister still lives in the UK, and during lockdown, her and her partner went to just buy essentially a bigger TV for their place, and they applied, and they got they went to John Lewis, I think it was, and they were like, oh, you can get this TV now, or you can interest free for 24 months. And they were like, okay, well, why not? It's instead of buying it now. And they got declined for the credit. she called up the credit agency and was like, "Hey, what is going on here? Like, what's happening?" And they were like, "Your credit score is perfect. Like, there's no reason why you shouldn't decline. Like, call John Lewis." So they called John Lewis up and they were like, "Hey, what's the score here?" And they were like, "Oh, we declined you because it's highly likely you'll make the repayments on time. We won't make any money off you. So we're not going to extend the credit to you."
At least they're honest about it.
I was like, wow, yeah.
Insane.
So
I think,
they just would have bought it outright, but yeah.
Yeah, there's so many things there, right? One is credit cards are, they're there to make a profit, right? If everybody paid off their credit card every month, the credit card proposition would look completely different.
Yeah.
But AfterPay, like in terms of a marketing strategy, you do have to applaud what AfterPay, and we should, like any kind of product like that, buy now, pay later, like what they've done is quite impressive, because like you've seen credit card numbers, and Mike and I saw this when we were in the banks, for people under 30 really start to drop down. And you go, oh, people are starting to get it. You've got to be really careful with these solutions. They can work, but they can also be dangerous. AfterPay is going, hey, there's no interest. You don't have to fund anything. But the question becomes, is that service being there, are they buying 1, 2, 10, 20, 30 more things a year? And then what is the impact on their ability to achieve their goals, pay down their mortgage, save for their first home, whatever it might be? So that's where I come from. Like if you're going to buy a TV, right, and you're going to buy it anyway, from a cash flow perspective, it makes sense. But you've just got to be super careful that it's not kind of, you keep rolling with it, pay after pay.
Yeah, exactly. Pay after pay. It could be a campaign there, man. Like the anti after pay, pay after pay. It just keeps going. Cool. Yeah, you're right. That's definitely the appeal of being able to buy a lot more than you believe you can afford, because you're just paying a fraction of the whatever it is every. I've never used AfterPay, but is it every 2 weeks or 4 weeks or something that you make a payment?
Yeah, something like that.
Yeah,
I think let's get out of the AfterPay weeds, because we can sit here and talk about this all day. Yeah.
Let me ask one more question, Jason. I know we aim for like 15-minute videos, but unsurprisingly we go over like pretty much always. But that's all right. One other question I'm really keen to hear about from PocketSmith's perspective is, as a financial advisor, I usually find people will come to me, it's not like, there's some people who are really organized in their life and they want to sort these things. But a lot of the time it's an event that happens in their life. Maybe they've spoken to a friend, maybe they've hit a real milestone in terms of age, had a baby. Having you, and you mentioned it before, PocketSmith is one of those tools where I suggest it and people go, that sounds great. And then also sounds terrifying at the same time, because I'm actually spending $10,000 a year on brunch. But yeah, I'm in that camp too. Don't worry, Mike. But Jason, when it comes to your clients, do you guys have any, research or have any feedback around the milestones in their life that make them go, I want to go to PocketSmith, I want to sign up, and I want to take control of my future?
The wonderful thing about the work that we do is that we just see such a wide variety in people's stories. And this is a big reason why we love coming to work and why we wanted to build a business that allowed us to connect with people from all over the world. It's because it's the finances, as you know, are a gateway to what you want to achieve in life. And we've been very privileged to share in so many of our customer stories. And they're every single one, just slightly different. Yes, we've got a number of key personas. There's we think of our biggest persona as the home CFO, and that is the unsung hero of the household, who basically just takes hold of the finances and does it probably because their partner wants to do it even less, but they're not really given the credit or the support for doing something like that. This is usually with well-established households that I think. What we hear from those customers is, hey, we're making enough, but we just don't have any idea where the money is going. And that's probably what we hear of quite often. On the fringes, the other side of it, are like people who are off on an adventure and doing really cool things. But the major life-changing events would be the more prosaic ones, like, hey, I need to buy a house, and the pain of not knowing my finances is acute enough. Or James is telling me that I need to get the truth of the matter, because I can't just throw numbers out there and he's going to make a plan for me. No, I've got to sit down and see how much I'm actually earning and spending each quarter or each year. So that kind of push come to shove situation is where people are at. So tipping point, saving for a house, saving for a family. Another life moment that unfortunately crops up more often than we expect is a separation or a divorce. And that, again, is, we published a piece about this some time back, and it went down like a bucket of cold sick. Nobody wanted to engage with it because no one likes talking about these situations. Similarly, no one likes talking about retirement or preparation for passing on, or your estate management, whatever it is, but they're all realities of life, right? And the fact of the matter is, in most households, that and us actually thinking about a home CFO is a clear reflection of that. When a separation happens, one person is left out in the cold, and they've never paid the bills. They've never understood what utilities are there and how to deal with the household finances, how much we make. And that is the drive to get people to sign up as well, which is not to say all our customers are divorcees. It's kind of odd talking about this. It's like we're an apartment building full of divorcees. It's not quite the case. But life happens, right? Life happens, and people need to suddenly be aware of where they're at. So
absolutely.
Yeah.
Those are really those are a lot of those situations we absolutely resonate with. We both, James and I, see this very regularly, or pretty much all of those things, whether it's separations or the life events, or something happens to them, which is the catalyst for them really feeling the pinch of, I don't understand where my money's going. And it's a real cry for help, sort of, what do I do now? Where do I go next?
One of the biggest, one of the biggest missed opportunities I think we see with most households is that because they don't feel the pinch, there's just so much wastage, which is not to say that you've got to be so frugal as to count every dollar. But I think every household could do well to do an assessment every now and then, just to say, hey, where are we at? And what are the missed opportunities if we maybe cut down on a few things that we don't value, so we can redirect them to things that we do care about. I think budgeting, certainly, and you guys would know, has a bad rep because people think of it as a real chore, whereas it's like, budgeting is a bit like working out or dieting, right? Like, if you don't have a reason to do it, then don't do it. And most people jump straight to that, like, oh, I'm going to sign up to PocketSmith and it's a budgeting tool. It isn't. It's actually a tool that just lets you see, as I said earlier, it helps you answer questions about your money. And I think everyone needs to have questions about their money. If you're not asking, then you're, on purpose, choosing to turn a blind eye. And that's just a shame.
Knowledge is power.
It is.
And I talk about as well that finances is really a bit of a tug of war between current you and future you. And you really want to make sure that you're enjoying yourself in the moment, because there's no promises for tomorrow, but also making sure that with that tug of war, retired you is not going to be face down in the mud because you've had too much fun in the moment. So we'll wrap it up there. Make sure to check out part 2, where we talk about the future of finance. I think the world's change. I feel like the world's changing. It might be a little bit slower than some of us would like, but make sure to check that out. If you are wanting to take control of your finances, also make sure to check out the PocketSmith website and their tool. We'll pop a link to in the bio for $10-15 a month to take control of your financial future is one of the best investments you can make. Also, make sure to give us a like, subscribe on the channel. If you're watching this on Apple, please make sure to give us a review to help us spread the financial literacy word and help more people take control of their future. But thank you very much for joining us. Thank you, Jason, and we'll see you next week.
Thanks, team.
Cheers.